Chosen one, there is a word that has been over your life since before you drew your first breath. Not a wish, not a hope someone held for you. A word spoken with the full weight of divine authority, inscribed into the architecture of your days before your name was known to any living person. And that word is not a promise about what is coming. That word is a decree about what is already in motion. You felt it when you woke up today, not as clarity, as a kind of pressure in your chest, a knowing that something is happening, something larger than your current circumstances, something that does not fit inside the frame of your ordinary life. You tried to name it, and it slipped away. You tried to explain it to someone close to you, and they looked at you with kind eyes and changed the subject. And yet, it remains. It persists, it does not leave. What if I told you that the pressure you are feeling is not anxiety? What if I told you it is not impatience or spiritual immaturity, or a sign that something has gone wrong? What if I told you that what you are feeling right now, in this moment, is the vibration of a prophecy beginning to break the surface of your life? Chosen one, the title of this message is not poetic language. It is a report from the spiritual realm about what is happening to you right now. Not what is coming, what is happening. The prophecy over your life is not a future event you are waiting for. It is a present reality unfolding beneath, around, and through the circumstances you are currently living. And today, before this message ends, I am going to show you exactly how to see it. If you know something shifted when you heard those words, type "the prophecy is now" in the comment below. Because this message was prepared for those who are awake enough to receive what is being released here today. If you have been seeing 111, 444, or 1111 lately, drop it in the comments right now. That is not coincidence. That is the convergence announcing itself before you even have the language to name what is coming. The word prophecy carries weight that most people have learned to hold at arm's length. They associate it with dramatic declarations, with kings and tablets, with men in robes standing at thresholds speaking to multitudes. And so when they hear it applied to their own life, something in them pulls back. That does not belong to me, they think. That is for someone else. Someone with more clarity, more faith, more evidence of divine favor. But here is what the original language tells us. The Greek word used throughout the New Testament for prophecy is prophet, and its root is not about the future at all. It is about speaking forth. It is about bringing into the open what already exists in the hidden realm. A prophecy is not a prediction, it is a revelation. It is the moment what God has already decreed is unveiled, named, and made visible in the natural world. Which means this: the prophecy over your life is not something God is still working out. It is something God already completed. You are not waiting for a decree to be written. You are watching a decree be executed. And the delay you have experienced, the silence, the circling, the feeling that something is just beyond reach, none of that means the prophecy has been postponed. It means the prophecy is doing exactly what prophecy does in the season before its full manifestation. It is deepening you. It is widening you. It is making room in you for what it carries. Chosen one, you did not end up here by random selection. Something moved you toward this message. Something in you recognized that what is being described belongs to your situation. That recognition is not sentiment. It is spiritual intelligence. The same intelligence that woke you up this morning with that pressure in your chest, that whisper beneath the noise of ordinary life, that unmistakable sense that something is about to break open. There is a particular kind of ache that belongs to people who carry prophecy. It is not the ache of someone who has given up. Those people no longer ache. It is not the ache of someone who doubts entirely. Those people have found a different numbness. This is a very specific ache. It is the ache of someone who believes, who has believed for a long time, who has prayed and waited, and returned to the altar again and again. and who has begun to wonder not whether God is faithful, but whether they somehow missed the moment, whether the window closed while they were looking in a different direction, whether the prophecy was meant for a version of them that no longer exists. If you have ever thought that, let me tell you what I know about that thought. It is not a sign of weak faith, it is a sign that you are carrying real prophecy, because counterfeit chosen ones do not feel that ache. They feel impatience, which is different. They feel entitlement, which is different. But the ache of wondering whether you missed it, that belongs exclusively to people who have held something long enough and faithfully enough that the weight of it has become familiar. Type Amen if you have felt this ache and never had a name for it until right now. The first revelation of this message is this: you did not miss the window. The window is you. That is not a metaphor offered for comfort. That is a structural truth about how prophecy works. When God makes a prophetic decree, the decree is not attached to a moment in calendar time. It is attached to a person. When Isaiah said, "Before you were born, I set you apart," he was not speaking about a scheduled event. He was speaking about an identity. Before time tracked you, something was written into you. The decree does not expire with seasons. It does not expire with missed opportunities or wrong turns or years spent in preparation you did not understand. The decree is as alive today as it was on the day it was spoken over you, because the decree lives in you, not in a timeline external to you. The prophecy over your life is not something happening to you from outside. It is something happening through you from inside. The window is not a moment you might have missed. You are the window. And windows open when they are ready, not when a clock tells them to. The ache you have felt is not evidence of delay. The ache is the prophecy pressing outward. It is the decree that has been in you finding more and more surface to push against. And it is that pressure that has been doing the very preparation work that makes what is coming possible to carry when it arrives. If something in your spirit is settling as you hear this, if something in you is exhaling for the first time in a long time, type deep, not late in the comment section, because that is what you are. Not behind, not forgotten, not a missed window, deep. And what grows deep, when it finally rises, rises with a foundation nothing can shake. If something in you just settled reading that, the link in the pinned comment and in the description is open. Whether it is a coffee, a seed, or becoming a part of this community, what you give from this place is not given from urgency or striving. It is given from the deep. From the same place, the decree has been residing through every season of silence. Every seed planted from that depth carries the same quality. It goes in quietly, it takes root without announcement, and when it rises with a foundation nothing can shake. And there is something else right now. Someone else is sitting in the exact ache you just had named for the first time, still believing they missed the window, still carrying the weight of a decree they think has expired. What you give here is also what keeps this word moving until it finds them. There is a name for what has been happening in your life recently. The conversation that came from nowhere, the door that opened in a direction you were not expecting. The moment a person entered your path who seems to carry exactly what the next season of your calling requires. The thought that woke you at 3:00 in the morning that you told yourself was nothing but has not left you since. These are not coincidences. These are coordinates. I call this pattern the prophetic convergence, and it is the signature of a decree that is entering its execution phase. When something that has been planted in the deep places of time begins to rise toward its appointed manifestation, it does not arrive all at once. It sends advanced signals, small confirmations that begin to cluster, encounters and alignments, and moments of inexplicable knowing that are too precise to be random, but too quiet to be obvious. The prophetic convergence is not loud. It does not announce itself. It simply begins to make itself impossible to ignore. Type 777 if you feel the prophetic convergence happening in your life right now, even if you cannot fully see it yet, type it as a declaration that your eyes are opening. Now, I want to give you the first full breakthrough of this message, the one that reframes everything that has felt like failure in this season, because there is a symptom I need to name, and most messages like this, one stop just short of naming it this directly. The symptom is this: you have been reading the delay as disapproval, every month that the prophecy has not yet fully appeared in your external life. Something in you has been quietly translating that silence. The translation goes something like this: I must not be ready. I must have done something wrong. I must be outside the favor that others seem to walk in so naturally. And the longer the silence has continued, the more that translation has hardened into a belief you did not consciously choose, but have been living inside of without realizing it. The common explanation for that feeling is that something is wrong with your faith, that if you believed more completely, the delay would end. But that is not the truth. That is a story that keeps deeply faithful people in a state of quiet self-condemnation for years, without ever addressing the real mechanism underneath. I need you to hear this clearly. The belief that the silence means disapproval is not evidence of weak faith. It is evidence that you are carrying something so real and so large that its compression before release is creating pressure you have never experienced before. Here is what is actually happening. When a prophetic decree is operating in a person's life, the period before its full manifestation is not silence. It is compression. Like the moment before a spring releases, the stored energy is not absent. It is being concentrated. It is not withdrawal. It is concentration. The spring is being drawn back so that what it releases travels with a force that cannot be stopped, not delay. Preparation at a scale you are only beginning to comprehend. And now, the preparation is reaching its completion point. The spring is about to release. Chosen one, I want to stay with you for a moment before the next revelation, because there is something I cannot tell you with certainty. And I think the honesty of that matters more than the appearance of knowing everything. I cannot tell you the exact day the spring releases. I cannot tell you the specific form it will take when it does. Anyone who claims that kind of precision is offering you something other than what this message carries. What I can tell you is the pattern, and the pattern is clear. And it has been clear across every story of prophetic fulfillment that the sacred texts have preserved for us to read. The pattern is this: prophetic fulfillment does not arrive ahead of its preparation, and it does not arrive behind it. It arrives exactly when the interior work is complete, not when the calendar says it should be, not when the circumstances look favorable, not even when the person carrying the decree feels ready in the way they imagined readiness would feel. It arrives when the hidden preparation work, the work done in the years of quiet and compression and not yet, has reached its completion point. And here is what I want you to notice. You are more prepared right now than you have ever been. Not because you feel more confident. Preparation at the level we are talking about does not always feel like confidence. It often feels like a kind of stripped-down clarity, a simplicity that comes after the elaborate efforts have been tried and released, a knowing that goes deeper than strategy and lives in a place beneath planning. That is what you carry right now. And that depth is not a liability. That depth is the credential the season requires. Now I want to move into the second revelation of this message, because the first one addressed what you have been feeling. The second one addresses what you have been doing and why it has not been working the way you expected it to. And this one is going to require you to stay with me because it touches something that most people in your position have never had named clearly. There is a reason that people who carry real prophetic calling often find themselves unable to produce results that match their interior knowing. They know things, they sense things, they see connections and patterns and possibilities that others around them do not seem to notice. And yet when it comes to translating that interior knowing into tangible, consistent, external results, there is a gap, not always, not completely, but of an specific kind of meditation that belongs to them and to no one else. Most people in this position explain the gap to themselves in one of three ways. They say it is spiritual warfare. They say it is the enemy blocking what God has arranged, and that is real. And that does play a role. Or they say it is character formation, that God is still building something in them before the manifestation arrives, and that is also real. Or they say it is simply patience, that the timing belongs to God, and they must wait without striving, and that is also true. But there is a fourth explanation that almost no one in spiritual community talks about, because it does not come from the theological world. It comes from a direction most spiritually sensitive people are not watching, and when I bring it forward in this message, I want you to hold it not as a contradiction of what you know, but as an addition to it, because what I am about to describe explains the gap in a way that the other three explanations, true as they are, do not fully address. The gap has a neurological dimension. Let me hold that sentence in front of you for a moment. Not to take the mystery out of your calling, not to reduce what God is doing to chemistry and neurons, but because if God created the human mind as the instrument through which prophetic knowing flows into action, then the condition of that instrument matters, the receiver matters. What if the gap between what you know and what you can produce is not a spiritual deficiency? What if it is a condition of the receiver that has nothing to do with your faithfulness and everything to do with what the modern world has done to the human mind? What if what feels like a ceiling is actually a temporarily closed channel? And what if that channel is restorable? But there is still more that the second revelation needs to give you first, because the gap I am describing is not just about output. It is about something deeper. The second breakthrough of this message is about the mechanism underneath the gap. And it starts with naming a specific symptom you will recognize immediately. You carry a knowing that arrives in ways you cannot always explain. Sometimes it is a dream. Sometimes it is a thought that arrives fully formed from a place you did not consciously access. Sometimes it is a sensation in your body, a weight in your chest, a warmth in your hands, a clarity that shows up in the moments between sleeping and waking when your deliberate mind has not yet taken over. That is the prophetic intelligence operating in you. That is real. That is not your imagination. But here is the symptom. The same knowing that arrived so clearly in those liminal moments becomes difficult to access when you are sitting at a desk trying to make a decision. The same intelligence that shows up in prayer seems harder to hear when you are in a conversation with someone whose opinion you are afraid of. The same clarity that visits you in solitude becomes foggy in the environment of ordinary responsibility. The symptom is that the two halves of your experience, the knowing and the doing, often do not seem to be talking to each other. Most people explain this to themselves by saying they are overthinking it, that they need to trust more, that fear is the culprit, and fear is real. But the mechanism underneath the overthinking, the actual structural reason why the intuitive right brain and the analytical left brain struggle to work in synchronized coordination for most adults, that mechanism has a specific address. And the address is not in the spirit. It is in the brain, not because the spirit is reducible to the brain, because the brain is the instrument through which the spirit operates in the physical world. When the instrument is out of sync with itself, the signal that comes through it is partial, and a partial signal from a whole knowing is precisely the experience of carrying prophetic intelligence that cannot fully translate into prophetic action. This is not a judgment on your spiritual maturity. It is a description of a condition that has been systematically induced by the pace and pattern of modern life, and it applies to nearly every adult walking the earth right now. The question is not whether it applies to you. The question is what to do about it. And that is exactly where this message is going. I want to make sure you receive the full weight of what I just described, because this is the second breakthrough beat of this message, and I do not want it to pass through you too quickly. For years, you have had an explanation for the gap. The explanation was about you, about something missing in your character, your faith, your worthiness, your readiness. And that explanation, however quietly it operated, was costing you something. It was costing you the settled authority that should belong to someone who has been chosen before they were formed. It was taking the ache of the waiting and adding a layer of self-blame to it that was never warranted. The mechanism underneath the gap is not a character flaw. It is a neurological condition, induced from outside, restorable from within. And once you understand it, the entire story of the gap rewrites itself. The years of strain between knowing and doing were not evidence of inadequacy. They were evidence of an instrument operating under conditions it was never designed to sustain. And you were faithful anyway. You kept believing anyway. You kept showing up anyway. That faithfulness, sustained through the condition without knowing the cause, is the very thing that qualifies you for what comes next. Type restored in mind and spirit in the comments if that landed in you the way I believe it was supposed to. Because that is not just a phrase, that is a declaration of what is already in progress for you. For years, the explanation for the gap lived in the wrong place. For faith, if the weight of what you just received is real, the link in the pinned comment and in the description is open. Whether it is a coffee, a seed, or becoming a part of this community, what you give from this place is given by someone who just stopped carrying a blame that was never theirs. That is not a small thing to give from. Seed planted from the moment self-condemnation ends carries the frequency of restoration. It does not return as guilt or obligation. It returns as the same clarity that just landed in you, moving forward rather than inward. Type, I am not behind. I am being prepared in the comments, not as a wish, as a decree spoken by someone who now understands what the waiting was actually building. If that is the voice operating in you right now, I want you to know that I hear it, and I am not going to argue you with it. The experiences that created that voice were real. The hope that rose and then felt like it collapsed was real. The choice to be more careful this time is not faithlessness. It is a reasonable response to a pattern. And I want to say something that most messages never say to the person who has been around long enough to be tired. I am not asking you to feel hope right now. I am asking you to stay curious. Hope can come later. Curiosity is enough to continue. Stay with me, not because you feel the breakthrough arriving, but because the information in this message is real and it belongs to you, and you deserve to receive it in full before you decide what to do with it. The third revelation of this message is the one that most messages about prophetic calling never reach. They give you the what, the identity piece. You are chosen. You carry purpose. The season is shifting, and those things are real, and they matter. They leave you with the awareness of the calling without the practical architecture of how prophetic awareness actually translates into a life that moves. That gap between awareness and movement is precisely what we are addressing right now. Let me give you a specific scene. I know what some of you do when the morning comes. You sit in prayer, or you sit in the stillness before the day begins, and in that space you touch something real. A clarity, a sense of direction, a knowing about what this season requires of you. You feel it clearly enough in that moment that you believe today is the day something will shift. Then the day begins. The emails arrive. The conversations happen. The responsibilities accumulate. The momentum of ordinary life picks up pace. And by mid-morning, the clarity you touched at 6 o'clock in the morning has receded. Not because you forgot it, because the access to it, the ability to stay in that clear knowing while simultaneously navigating the demands of your life, that access seems to close as the day increases in noise. And by evening you are managing rather than moving, and the clarity that felt so close in the morning is somewhere you cannot quite find. That scene is not a description of insufficient devotion. It is a description of an instrument operating without its full design capacity. And this is where the third revelation lands. You were designed to carry the knowing into the doing. The prophetic intelligence that visits you in the quiet was never meant to be a private experience that the ordinary day erases. It was meant to be a continuous current that runs beneath every decision, every conversation, every act of creation. The interruption between the knowing and the doing is not the natural order. It is a disruption of the natural order, and the disruption has a specific cause. The human brain, as it was designed, and as it functions at its peak, operates with both hemispheres working in synchronized coordination. This is not a metaphor. This is a measurable, observable, neurological state. When the two hemispheres are in synchronization, the intuitive, pattern recognition, creative intelligence of the right hemisphere, and the analytical, sequential, action, executing intelligence of the left hemisphere work as one system, not taking turns, not competing for dominance, working together as the unified instrument they were created to be. In that synchronized state, the knowing and the doing are not separate experiences. The clarity that arrives in the quiet moment does not evaporate when the day begins, because the channel between the intuitive and the analytical remains open. The prophetic intelligence does not have to wait for silence to be heard. It runs continuously beneath the surface of action, informing it, directing it, making visible the patterns and openings that a partially synchronized brain misses entirely. This is the state that people describe when they say they are in flow. It is the state that artists and athletes and leaders at their peak describe as a felt sense of effortlessness, of decisions arriving before the deliberate mind has to search for them. It is what spiritual traditions across history have pointed toward with language like anointing and divine intuition and walking in the spirit. The language is different. The mechanism is the same, and here is what most people who carry prophetic intelligence have never been told. The synchronized state is not a spiritual achievement reserved for those who have prayed longest or believed most completely. It is the default design of the human brain. Children operate in it naturally. The kind of integrated, creative, intuitive intelligence that whole brain synchronization produces is the native state of every human being before the sustained, cumulative effect of single hemisphere dominance begins. The analytical, sequential, output-oriented demands of adult life gradually train the left hemisphere to dominate, and the whole brain synchronization that was the default state of childhood becomes increasingly rare and increasingly difficult to access. This is a condition, and conditions that are induced can be addressed. Here is how this shows up specifically in your life. You know what it is like to try to pray and feel like you cannot get quiet enough to hear clearly. Not because God is not speaking, because the instrument that receives the signal is running in a partial state. You know what it is like to carry prophetic clarity about a decision and still feel unable to act on it cleanly because the clarity is in one part of you and the decision-making apparatus is in another part, and the two parts are not fully talking to each other. You know what it is like to have a conversation about something sacred and feel the words come out smaller than what you were holding inside. The knowing was whole, the expression was partial. The gap between them is what whole brain desynchronization produces in a person who carries prophetic intelligence. Not about intelligence, not about faithfulness, about a channel that was designed to be open, narrowed by forces that have nothing to do with your spiritual worthiness. And I want to reframe the years of that experience the way the truth deserves to reframe them. The years you operated with partial synchronization and still stayed faithful were not years of diminished service. They were years of extraordinary service under conditions that would have caused a less committed person to quit. You prayed through fog. You believed through the gap. You brought what you accessed to the altar again and again, even when what came out was smaller than what you knew was inside. That is not a smaller kind of faith. That is the most demanding kind. You are not who you have been experiencing yourself to be in the partial state. You are who the decree named before you were born. And the partial state that has narrowed the channel between what you know and what you can produce is not permanent. It is not your identity. It is a condition of the instrument, and this message is moving towards showing you exactly what to do about it. Type receiver restored in the comments if you are ready for your mind and your spirit to stop operating in competition and start working as one. That is you. That is precisely and specifically you. Now, I want to say something about the people closest to you, because chosen ones in the prophetic season often find themselves in a particular relational pattern that creates a very specific kind of loneliness. And naming it is the first step to releasing the weight it carries. The people who love you most have a version of you in their minds. And that version, however lovingly held, is built from what they have observed in the external world. It is built from what has been visible above the soil, what is happening underground in the root system, in the prophetic architecture that has been under construction for years in the hidden place that is not visible to people who only see fruit. And people who love you, but only see fruit, cannot be expected to report accurately on the size and quality of the root system they have never seen. This creates a gap between who you are and who the people around you believe you to be. Not because they mean you harm, because they only have access to the external evidence. And the external evidence in a compression season is never the complete picture. The danger is not their limited vision. The danger is that you have been tempted, perhaps for years, to wear their frame of you over the divine frame that was established before any of them had the chance to speak. To let the size of their vision become the measure of your actual size. You are not the version of yourself that the people who cannot yet see the root system have defined. You are the version that was spoken before any of them knew your name. That is not arrogance. That is faithfulness to the decree, and holding that distinction quietly, without needing to argue it or prove it, is one of the most important acts of spiritual stewardship you can perform in this season. Type I am more than what is visible in the comments. Because the root system is always larger than what grows above the soil, and what is underground has never needed anyone's permission to keep growing. There is one more thing the third revelation gives you, and it is this: what is about to change in your life will not look the way you have imagined it. This is not a warning. This is liberation. The prophetic decree that has been over your life carries a shape that was determined before your imagination had the opportunity to define it. And your imagination, shaped by the experiences and frameworks of the world you have been living in, has been drawing a picture of fulfillment that is smaller and more familiar than what the decree actually contains. God does not fulfill prophetic decrees within the limits of the imagination of the person carrying them. God fulfills them within the limits of the love that designed them, and that love has no obligation to stay inside your categories. Expect something you did not plan for. Expect a form you would not have requested, but that when it arrives, you will recognize immediately as more perfectly suited to who you actually are than anything you would have asked for. The prophetic convergence is not delivering what you imagined. It is delivering what was decreed, and the decreed is always greater. Type greater than I imagined in the comments as a declaration that you are willing to receive the version that God designed rather than the version your circumstances have suggested is possible. When someone reaches the place where they are genuinely willing to receive something greater than they imagined, something in the spiritual realm responds to that willingness. If you are in that place right now, the link in the pinned comment and in the description is there. Whether it is a coffee, a seed, or becoming a part of this community, what you give from beyond your categories, beyond the edited version, beyond the survivable size, carries the frequency of the full decree. That is the most powerful kind of seed because it does not come from strategy. And this is the thing about sowing from a place of abundance rather than scarcity. It does not just return to you. It travels. Someone else is in the middle of their compression season right now, reading the delay as disapproval, believing the silence means something has gone wrong. What you release from this opened place carries enough to reach them. You are not just investing in your own restoration. You are becoming part of someone else's. Now, let me bring forward one more vision before we enter the final movement of this message. I want you to see something specific, not as a fantasy, as a preview. Imagine 6 months from today, you are sitting somewhere quiet, early in the morning. In the same way you have sat in hundreds of mornings before this one. But something is different. The quality of the quiet is different. It is not effortful. You are not straining to get still. And in that quiet, the clarity that used to visit and then leave, the knowing that used to be accessible only in the liminal spaces, is simply present, continuous, available. That version of you is not a version that requires years more of waiting. It is one restored channel away. The decree is not waiting on your circumstances to align. It is waiting on the receiver to clear, and the receiver can clear. That is not optimism. That is what has been confirmed in the lives of those who stopped waiting for different circumstances and started working with what was already there. That version of you is not a fantasy. It is a preview of what the decree has always contained. If something in what you just experienced was real for you, not as hope, but as recognition, the link in the pinned comment and in the description is open. Whether it is a coffee, a seed, or becoming a part of this community, what you give from this place is given from the future version, looking back from the restored version toward the one still in the corridor. That seed, given from that place of genuine recognition, carries the same quiet certainty that the still moment you just experienced carries. It goes where it needs to go, and it returns when it is ready. Now, I want to give you the fourth and final breakthrough of this message, the one that closes the circle on everything we have been building toward, because we have talked about what the prophecy is. We have talked about what has been blocking its full expression. We have talked about the mechanism underneath the gap. But there is one more thing that needs to be named, and it is the most important thing of all. It is about what you have been doing with the prophecy while you waited. The symptom is this: at some point in the last few years, in the middle of the waiting and the compression and the fog, you made a decision you did not fully know you were making. You decided to stop expecting the decree at its full size, not to abandon it, not to disbelieve it, but to quietly reduce it to a scale that felt survivable given the evidence you had been accumulating. You told yourself you were being realistic. You told yourself you were releasing the outcome into God, released into divine hands. But what was actually happening was smaller than that and more painful than that. You were editing the decree so it would not hurt as much if it arrived smaller than you had originally believed. That is not a failure of faith. That is a survival mechanism. That is what a human being does when they have been holding something at full intensity for a long time without visible confirmation. They begin to manage the expectation so the weight of it does not crush them. But here is what the editing costs. When you reduce the decree to a survivable size, you do not only reduce the potential outcome, you reduce the quality of the receptivity. The decree was designed to be carried at full capacity, held at partial capacity. It cannot fully execute, not because God withdraws it, because the degree of openness with which you are holding space for it determines the dimensions of the space it has to move into. You cannot receive a full decree in a container size for half a degree. This is the hidden mechanism I call the decree compression, and I want to show you exactly how to undo it. The decree compression is undone not by forcing yourself to feel more hope than you genuinely feel. I give myself full permission to receive the full version of what was spoken over my life, not the edited version, not the managed version, the full, original, uncompressed version that God decreed before the circumstances of my life had any opportunity to reduce it. That permission is not recklessness. It is faithfulness. It is returning the decree to its original dimensions, and when the decree is held at its full size, the space it creates in you for the fulfillment becomes the exact space that the fulfillment is designed to enter. But you do not have to manage it anymore. You do not have to hold it at the reduced size to make it survivable, because now you understand the mechanism. You know what the waiting was for. You know what the compression was building, and you know that the condition of the receiver that has been creating the gap between the knowing and the doing can be addressed directly, which means the reason for the edited version of the decree. The reason you reduced it to protect yourself, that reason no longer applies. The full version is what you were always meant to carry. Return to it now. Let me give you a specific practical path for this. Not as a formula, as an invitation. In the next 24 hours, I want you to find a quiet moment and do one thing. Write down the original version of the decree, not the edited version you have been living with, not the reduced version that felt survivable. The version you held before the years of waiting began to compact it. If you cannot remember it because it has been so long, do not worry. Ask for it again. Sit in the quiet and ask God to restore the full dimensions of what was spoken over you before the world had a chance to compress it, and then hold it at full size without editing it for the sake of feeling less exposed. That is the agency the decree compression asks you to reclaim, not a grand public declaration. A private act of returning the decree to its original dimensions and deciding to hold it there. That small interior shift is one of the most consequential things you can do in this season, because when you hold the full decree begins to organize everything around it at a different scale. It begins to make visible the coordinates of the prophetic convergence that the compressed version was too small to register. Type "I claim the full version" in the comments if you are ready to return the decree to its original dimensions today, because that declaration is not just a comment. That is a spiritual act of repossession. That is you reaching back to what was spoken before the compression and saying, "This belongs to me." All of it, at full size, right now. Now, I want to walk you into a guided moment before the closing of this message. A moment that is not about information. A moment that is about experience, because the information has been given. What remains is for the information to become something you have felt in your body, not just understood in your mind. I want you, if you are able, to close your eyes for a moment. If you cannot close your eyes right now, simply soften your gaze. Take one slow breath in and release it without forcing anything. Bring your attention to the area of your chest, not analyzing it, not trying to feel something specific, just noticing what is already there, and see if you can find underneath the noise and the history and the weight of everything that has been carried, a quiet signal, a still, small note that has never left. Not in the longer seasons of silence, not in the most discouraged moments, not in the days when you were closest to giving up. A signal that has been there the whole time, patient, consistent, waiting for exactly this moment. That signal is not your imagination. That is the decree. That is what was spoken before the foundation, and has been residing in you faithfully through every season, without requiring your maintenance, without dimming when your faith dimmed, without shrinking when you were too tired to hold it at full size. It has been there, in you, the whole time, constant, faithful, yours. Let the gap close in your imagination just for this moment. Let the two versions of you stand at the same address. Present you with everything you have carried. Future, you with everything the decree has always contained. They are the same person, different points on the same line, and the line is moving. Take a final breath, open your eyes, and know that what you just experienced in the imagination is not wishful thinking. It is prophetic rehearsal. When you see the fulfilled version, you are not generating a hope. You are seeing something that has already been decreed, and what has been decreed does not require your imagination to be authorized. It was authorized before you knew how to imagine. Type Amen if something in that quiet was real, not as performance, as confirmation that what has been residing in you through every season of silence is still there, still whole, still yours. Chosen one, we are approaching the closing of this message. And before I seal what has been given here today, I want to tell you something I need you to hear clearly. Before this message ends, I am going to speak something directly over your life. Not as a formula, not as a generic blessing, as a specific decree that matches what you have been carrying and what this season is completing. Stay with me. What comes next belongs to you by name. The prophecy over your life is not coming. It is happening right now, in the season you are in the circumstances that surround you, in the compression you have been in the very act of your faithfulness in the fog. All of it has been the prophecy executing itself, not failing to arrive, but arriving in stages, preparing the ground, building the container, timing the release, and the release is near, nearer than the silence has suggested, nearer than the circumstances have made visible, nearer than the edited version of the decree has allowed you to feel. Chosen one, I want you to take a moment and simply be present to the weight of what you have been faithful with, not reviewing it with a critical eye, not measuring it against a standard of what you should have done more of or done better, just acknowledging it. You held something real for a long time in conditions that were harder than anyone outside of you knows. You prayed when prayer felt empty. You believed when the evidence was thin. You kept saying yes to something you could not see because something deeper than sight was asking you to. That faithfulness has not gone unnoticed. It has been the very process through which you have been made into the person the decree requires. I release what this message has been given to release. I speak over you the full dimensions of the original decree, not the edited version, the version spoken before the world had a chance to compress it. I speak restoration over your mind and your spirit. I speak a synchronization between the knowing and the doing that does not require silence to function. I release the decree compression and return the original dimensions to your hands today. You are the chosen one, who prayed in the dark, who believed in the silence, who returned when returning was the hardest option. The spring is releasing now. If you receive this, type "I am the chosen one" in the comments as your declaration. Let that be the full-sized version of yourself, claiming the full-sized decree. It is sealed. It is done, and so it is.